Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Starfield and we're going to be doing another starship design video. First I did Star Wars, then I did Star Trek, now I'm doing my personal favorite sci-fi franchise, Stargate. And so I'm going to be showing you 5 unique ship designs that I was able to come up with from, Stargate based ships that I think all look pretty dang good. I spent a lot of time on these. So, like always with a video like this, these videos take an incredible amount of time to make. So if you could, it'd be great if you could like, share, subscribe, whatever you can do, comment. Maybe tell me which one of the ships is your favorite down in the comment section. It's just great to help out the video, and these videos do take a lot of work. So let's just get it started, and you can see the first ship that I'm going to show you today. Beans, we ran out of boost already. Let's get up onto the ship. Our first ship we're going to show you today is the probably most prominent Earth vessel from the show Stargate, if you're familiar with it. The BC-304 Daedalus class ship. So this one turned out really good, and I love flying around in it in the game. And so let's just start going through them. And so you can see stat-wise on this one in just general overview. Hey, I think the appearance of this one looks really good. I was able to pretty dang closely match the way that it looks in the show. So this was like my 10th attempt because I had tried the Daedalus class multiple times. It's the very first ship I tried to imitate when I got into the game because, like I said, I love Stargate. But it took a while to get it right. But I think I finally did, and I really like the design of it. So you can see stat-wise, we're doing pretty good. This is a Class C ship with just really good stats around. We've got over 2,500 for the shield. I wanted to make it like the show, so we have some like plasma beam type weapons in the ship, and I'll show you the locations as we go through. So that's like late tier Daedalus class after the Asgard give them the upgrades. But the rest is going to be ballistic and missiles, so it's just fun roleplay wise. But you can see we've got decent jump range, all really good stats across the board, so you can max out pretty much any category energy wise for any of your weapons, engine, shield, grav drive, everything. So it's a very, very good ship stat wise, and just appearance wise, I love the way it turned out. So I'm not going to do step-by-step building on this, but I'll show you some rough stuff just to show you what design elements I use, the rough layout of how I put hab pods in and stuff like that. It should help you if you're trying to imitate the ship. So at the bottom, I made the landing bay on the front. I wanted to do it on one of the sides since these are bays on the ship in the side, but it just didn't work out that way, and it made it look kind of weird having one bay open. Plus it was hard to make sure it aligned just right. So I just ended up putting it on the center, which also turned out fine. So I used the Demos 120 LD landing bay. Then we just have landing gears behind that, fill out the central section here, and then all of our important Class C components are here. So we've got a very large fuel tank on one side, our reactor, and then our grav drive on the other end, one more lander on the back, and then we have some shielded cargo holds onto the sides behind that, so we have cargo space. Off to the side of that, we've got some our engines, which I'll show you more when we're looking at the rear of the ship, and we have our hab pod layout for the whole bottom of the ship, so this is a large portion of the habitation space in this ship. So starting on the outside, we've got our Demos bumpers, giving us the rounded out edge side, and then a Demos hull on the back. But then we have a 3x1 living quarters, a 2x1 armory, a 2x1 science lab, 2x1 workshop over on this side, 2x1 infirmary, and another 3x1 living quarters. So plenty of space on the ship for crew, and also all of your important stuff for crafting and healing and all that sort of stuff, storing your own weapons. That's all on the bottom of this ship. So that is the rough overview of what the bottom of the ship looks like. Moving to the outside and rear, on the top of the outer wings here, we have our Hope Tech Cap A, which we're using. So we have the aft, 2 mids, and then a 4. You could mount weapons on these if you want. I did not. Moving to the rear of the ship, we have our Nova 1050 engines that I already talked about, and then our Dun 71 engines, so that provides all the thrust for the ship. And then we have a Demos belly aft just in the center there, which helps with the shape. And then same stuff all out on this side. Moving to the top layer, and in the center here, we have a couple more hab units. So we have a companionway above our workshop here, and another one over here, just 1x1 companionways to connect it up so we could get up to our central spire that leads up to the front, which is where our cockpit is. So just on the sides, we have companionways, but we don't have any other habitation units in the central part. Out on the outside here, you can see that we've got our Nova weapons mounts, which is where a bunch of our weapons are mounted. They're nice and tucked under, which I like. I like being able to hide the weapons in the ship because it keeps the outline looking clean. Then moving on to our top layer, it's pretty much all structural. We have one unit that's not. We have the docker up top, but the rest of this this stuff is all just structural units. So we've got our Stroud Cap A on both sides in the back, and then the Cap C, the central part, and the B for the front, and then just hulls running along the middle. We have a Deimos Spine A4, which imitates the bridge, I believe it is, in the show. I believe the bridge on the Daedalus class is actually up on the top on the back here. You could put a weapon on here. Again, I did not. And then our shield generator off to the side. Moving down the front, like I said, we have that central spire connected to the bottom ones. I just have the engineering bay 3x1, which runs down the center and the back. Our captain's quarters on the front, which connects to our Phobos cockpit on the very front of the ship. Then above that, we just have our Hope Tech Cap B midsections running down the center of the top. We have a missile launcher on the top in the middle. It messes up the lines a little bit, but I needed it to be centrally located to balance it out because the asymmetrical missile launchers drive me nuts. Off on the sides, we've got our Deimos wings, which provide the rest of our body for the neck of the ship. Again, all of these have spots that you could mount weapons on, so you could locate a lot more in the middle if you didn't want to put all the weapons out on the side like I did. But honestly, overall, I love the way it turned out. Out of all of these ships I'm going to be showing you today, which I think all turned out looking really good, I think this one is my favorite. So this is the Daedalus class, the BC-304 from Stargate SG-1 and Atlantis. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's move on to the next ship. The next one we're going to be looking at is one that I maybe could have started the video with, the Prometheus class. So this is the X-303. It's the first spaceship that they make in Stargate SG-1. I also think it turned out looking really good. I made this one darker just so I would be able to tell at a glance what I was doing when I was making all of these ships. But I think it turned out looking really good. So you can see again, I went with the Class C style since it's blocky, so I was able to fit all the stuff in there. So we actually have pretty dang good stats on this. And it turned out looking very sci-fi. So I really like the way this one turned out. As far as just a rough build overview, we start down on the bottom. We have our 120 LD landing bay on the very front. Then we have 2 landing gears directly behind it and 2 more behind that, providing all of our landing thrust for this ship. Then on the way back, we have the SF-40 sheared flow reactor, so our Class C reactor. And that is it for the very bottom of the ship, unless you count the Deimos 4 bellies that I added on the front up here, just to give it the extra shape that the Prometheus has. Our center level is where most of the stuff in the ship is. So we have, on the front, I just have a nose cap to give it the dimension I needed. Behind that, a hull. And behind that, we have a Deimos living quarters 3x1, a workshop 2x1 behind that, a science lab 2x1 behind that, so that makes up the whole central habitation unit for the longest part of the ship. Off to the sides, we just have some Deimos hulls leading out to our little wings here, our braking engine on the front, another nose cap over on the side there to give us our dimensions we're looking for. The rear of the ship for our engines, we have the Amun 7 engine on the outside, and then on the inside, the Supernova 220 engines, so that actually looks relatively similar to the real engine layout of the Prometheus, so I like the way that turned out. On the rear of our ship, moving up to the next level, we have a Deimos captain's quarters 2x1 on the rear, and then in front of that, another living quarters, so plenty of crew space on the ship, as you may be able to tell, and then just a Hope Tech Cap A4 on the front of that to give our shape down. The whole front of the ship up here is just structural, so it's the same thing. We have our Hope Cap A aft, our Hope Cap B mid, and then our Deimos culling 4 on the front to give us the front section of the Prometheus's look. Then on the rear, moving up, we have another cap, we have a companionway, and on the behind that, we have the grab drive, and then above that, the shield generator, and then just 2 more companionways stacked on top of each other with the docker on top, and our Armstrong 20R cockpit hanging off those companionways on the front. So pretty simple ship to navigate, plenty of habitation space, not that much utility outside of that. You could obviously make it more by fitting in hab pods over on the side if you need to. I did not feel the need for that. We also helped our dimensions by using the M30 Ulysses helium tanks for the side to give our central tower the shape it looks more like in the show, and also we needed helium tanks. Then our top wings on the back, we've got our Stroud engine bracers connected to our Stroud nose caps, and then our Deimos wing E's, so we have all of our weapons mounted out here, as you can see. We got a centrally located Gauss gun. I think this one turned out looking pretty dang good. I like the Prometheus design. It's obviously, in my opinion, not as good of a ship design as the Daedalus class from the show, but I think it's very iconic, and I think this one turned out looking very good. You could obviously add a couple more weapons on here to make sure that you actually max out the rest of the stats. I didn't want to compromise the aesthetics of the ship. So that is the Prometheus class from Stargate SG-1. Our next ship was one that was tricky as heck to build. This one was not easy, but it is the Belisknir class ship from Stargate SG-1, so this one is an Asgard mothership. It turned out looking as good as I could get it. I spent a lot of time on this one. The Belisknir in the show is much thinner. You can see I had to make it 3 layers tall in the middle, and I wanted it to be 1 and look nice and thin thin like the Belisknir does, but because of the way that the landers and the docker works in this game, I had to make it thick so that the landers could reach the bottom to be lower than the wings of these central wings on the back, and the docker had to be taller than the cockpit area is in the show on the back so that I could dock. I was very disappointed. It took me a long time to design this one, but it did turn out looking pretty good, and stat-wise is pretty good. So this is another Class C ship. Again, I have less missiles on here than I could. I just didn't want to put any missile launchers in the center on the top because I didn't want an Asgard mothership to have missiles sticking out of it where you can see them. But overall, it looks pretty good. So I'll show you the basic build. Starting on the front, we have our landing bay, our gears behind that. Then we have our centrally located grav drive and reactor directly behind those gears. And then behind that, we've got a fuel tank, another landing gear, and then another landing gear on the back, and a cargo hold. So that's the whole centrally located bottom two layers here. On top of our landing gears back here, we just have a plain hull, and then we have a workshop 2x1 section, and then a braking engine on the front just for aesthetics. It's kind of hard to see because I made it black, but the ship is black in the show. And then on top of that, for the center section, we have the Viking CP220 cockpit on the front, and you can see we've got our Nova cowlings on the side, our Stroud cowlings behind that to give us the front shape of this ship. Then running down the middle, we have a 2x1 living quarters, a 3x1 living quarters, and then a captain's quarters on the back. And then to the sides of that, we have our workshop and our infirmary, two things that I like having on every ship, or most ships at least. And then above our captain's quarters, we have one Demos companionway, and then our docker on the top. So that is all of the like interior usable space you can see, or stuff that you need for the layout of the ship, coming all the way from the landing gear up to the habitation areas, cockpit, and the dock in the back. All the rest of it is just structural components for the appearance of the ship. Well, I should say almost all of it. We also have 4 Dun 71 engines stacked on top of each other on the sides of the back. So the ship is fast. It's got plenty of engine power. But for structural components, for the central risers, I use the Hope Tech risers, so just 2 of those top and bottom on either side of our hab pods that run through the middle. On the outside, you can see I use the Stroud caps for the outside of the wings, and then I use the Stroud nose cap C for the inside of the wings, but the same Stroud cap A for the bottom. So they look slightly different, but I wanted the shape to be a little bit more blocked off on the inside so it looks more like it does in the show. Honestly, like I said, it didn't turn out perfect because it's too chunky and thick, just base-wise, but stat-wise and general appearance-wise, I think it turned out looking pretty good. So that is the Belisknir class from Stargate. Our 4th ship we're going to be looking at today is the ancient warship, the Aurora class. So this one is another one that I think turned out looking pretty dang good. I was able to actually make it look a lot like it does in the show. So I'm proud of this one. This one is also a Class C ship. I was able to fit Class C parts into here, and stat-wise, just pretty much top of the line. You could make the engines a little bit better, but considering you don't have enough energy to fill everything to max anyway, I find it fine the way it is. I really like this design. So once again, as usual, starting on the bottom, we have our Hope 4 landing bay on the front right up here, and behind that we have all of our landing gears. So you can see we have the AccuLander 11s by Stroud Eklund. We have 3 of those running down the center, or 2 of those. We have 1 of those, and then we've got our Nova NG-20 landing gears, which is why we only need 3 gears total, because these ones provide 4 thrust each. So I always tell people, if you want to have less landing gears on your ship, head over to Nova Galactic because they've got the best landing gears in the game. Behind that, you can see we have our grav drive, and then behind that we have our helium tank on the back, and then our Dun 71 engines on the bottom, and the Amun 7 engines above that. The outsides of the ships are just the structural Stroud cap components. You can see on the rear we have just some Demos hulls on the top, and the 2x1 living quarters below that. In front of those living quarters, we've got more living quarters, this time a 3x1. In front of that, we have our workshop and our science lab, and then just a nose cap on the front. Above our living quarters here, we've got a hull, and behind that a companionway, another companionway, and our cockpit right up here on the front. So I was able to do a lot of stuff. You can see on the back we have our reactor right behind our central hab unit area, and then to the sides of that I was able to do the Nova wings, and then on the back we have our shield generator. Just generally good layout for the ship. I was able to make it pretty dang close to how it is in the show. So in the show, the center part here has like 4 things sticking off of it, but they stick off at angles, so like an X shape. You can't do that, so I just did 2 instead of having 4 stacked right on top of each other because I thought that would look silly. The cockpit is exactly where it is on the ship in the show, so that was perfect. I did this, it's got the Aurora class in the show has this asymmetrical design to it, and I was able to use that to put a fully loaded weapons mount on it, which I think turned out looking really, really good, and obviously keeps the outline of the ship looking nice and smooth because we were able to put a bunch of our weapons out on a weapon mount. Overall, I think it turned out great. It looks almost exactly like the Aurora class does in Stargate, and also has really good stats. It's very fun to fly this ship, and the interior is pretty easy to navigate just because almost all of of it is one straight row down the middle. Whenever you start branching things off to the side, especially on multiple story ships in this game, it starts getting confused. So yeah, that's the Aurora class. I love the way it turned out. For our color scheme, we did a darker gray with like a burnt orange accent, because that's, I believe, the color scheme that we first see on the Aurora class in Stargate Atlantis. So yeah, I love the way this one turned out. Moving on to our final ship from Stargate, we have the Destiny. And now this one wasn't easy, especially scale-wise, because the Destiny, if you've watched Stargate Universe, is a ridiculously large ship. It's extremely long and wide way on the back, but we were able to match it pretty well while maintaining decent enough stats. So yeah, that's the general appearance of it. As far as building this one goes, we're going to start with our 120 LD landing bay. We can see we have our landing gears centrally located behind that. I made this one class B because I wanted it to be nice and narrow, so it is a little bit less stat-wise, but it still performs really well as a ship. So we've got our class B grav drive and our class B reactor, got our fuel tanks off the sides, and then a bunch of bottom-mounted weapons back here. So we've got pulse lasers on the back mounted to our Deimos Wing E port off of the lander, and then we've got a missile launcher in front of that. Most of the habitation units on this ship are all centrally located, again, because I like keeping it simple. So we've got our workshop on the front, our living quarters 3x1 behind that, 2 of those, so I've got 2 3x1 living quarters, so plenty of living space. Off to the side of the living quarters, we've got a science lab on one side and a workshop on the other, on the bottom here. And then just running up the top, we have the captain's quarters, and then above the captain's quarters, we have a companionway, and then our docker on the top. And that docker connects to, like I said, to the companionway, and in front of the companionway, I use the Daimyo enhanced cockpit for the cockpit of the ship. We have the rest of the ship is mostly just structural components. So we've got our Dun 71 engines. I wish we had like a really thin plate that we could use to cover up skeletal sections like this, because the ship would look a lot better if you didn't see straight down through the wings like that. But honestly, I think it turned out looking pretty dang good as far as the Destiny could in this game. It's got a long shape. I used the Nova cowlings on the front, some Deimos forebellies for our sides. I did what I could. I think it turned out looking good. The Destiny was tricky. I knew when I picked it that it was going to be a tricky ship, but I know a lot of people really like the ship's design from Stargate Universe, so I figured I'd give it my best shot. So that is our 5th and final Stargate ship design for this video. And so that is actually where we're going to end today's video. So that was my 5 best ship designs from Stargate. If you want to see more ships from Stargate, I guess request that down in the comments section. But these were the ones that for me sprung to mind when I was thinking of different Stargate ships that I would be able to make in Starfield and that I like. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you're a fan of Stargate like me and were having trouble building ships, hopefully this was helpful. Again, like I said, any interactions you could for the video would be much appreciated. But with all that in mind, that's all for today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.